Luscious locks, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And BlueDragonFive.
And welcome to a podcast 20 years in the making. That's right, folks. This is the year, not the day, but the year, we're close enough, that Tarzan came out 20 years ago in the ripe old year of 1999. This is a year that I'm sure that some of you listening to this probably weren't even alive in, which makes me feel super old. But Dragon, Tarzan is just I think collectively it's kind of agreed upon where it might not get the sort of love that it did a Disney Renaissance movie like Beauty and the Beast or Lion King or Aladdin. Like those three seem to be like the I'd say those three plus Little Mermaid are kind of the Mount Rushmore of the Renaissance, if you will. But this one I feel like is a very, very consistently high quality outing that does some things differently that we'll break down and kind of talk about through this discussion. And I think ended the Disney Renaissance off on the right foot. I really think this was a bold movie for Disney.
Yep.
All right, Dragon, would you like to share some nostalgia?
Yeah, I love Tarzan. I really do. It's one of my favorite of all the Disney films. If I'm being frank, I don't know if it makes the top five, but it's definitely on the list, man. I love this movie so much. I feel it gets lost in the shuffle of Disney's success, if you will. But I think no matter who you go to, I think in some way, shape, or form, you'll find that it's beloved, if not just fondly regarded. That you're never rarely will you ever hear a bad word about Tarzan. The only bad word you're going to hear will probably be about the Phil Collins music, depending on who you ask. Depending on who you ask.
Right.
But seriously, though, and think about how quaint, think about just how cool that is. That rarely will you find someone who's going to say like a negative word about Tarzan. It's looking back on it for the 20th anniversary as we are here, it's just simply staggering when you really look at it. The talent that came together to bring out the strength of the material that we're here talking about today. It's a great character piece. It's fun. It's beautifully animated. Despite being, when you really think it, despite being like the third jungle movie Disney has done, the third movie set in the African jungle that Disney's done. This really to
Jungle
me.
Book was technically India.
Oh well, I kind of ruined my analogy there, but fair enough. Point regardless, okay, fine. Third jungle. Well, there's a jungle there, right? So the point is like third jungle related movie. All
No, Dragon, there's no jungle in the Jungle Book. You're wrong. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, point being, despite being the third jungle movie that Disney has done, to me, this one personally has always kind of stood out the best, at least for me. And it spawned another thing. The biggest nostalgic tie I have to Tarzan as well is another reason I hold the movie in high regard as well is it spawned a really great animated TV series too.
It did.
That continued the story. This is what a sequel should have done. Basically, kind of what Big Hero 6 is doing now, but this was done even better than that with A Legend of Tarzan. Kind of took what you loved about the movie and expanded it into a few seasons. I forget how many seasons it went for because they kind of bunch up the episodes. I don't know if it was like technically 2 seasons or if it was actually 4. It feels like 4. I can't guarantee that. Regardless, continued the story, fleshed out the world, and basically fleshed out what Disney's take on Edgar Rice Burroughs' work would have looked like had they kept going, which is the really cool thing about that show. So, oh my god, Tarzan is just it's a true gem, man. I can't say enough nice things about this movie. A lot of love for it.
Yeah, Dragon, the interesting thing about Tarzan is this is the first time in my wee little life that I remember actually being very anticipated, like having a lot of anticipation for a Disney movie. Of course, Disney movies had come out. Like I remember when Hunchback came out. I remember when Mulan came out. Of course, Lion King was my first movie I ever saw in theaters. But Dragon, I don't remember the promotional rollout for any of those movies. I remember the promotional rollout for Mulan a little bit. Believe it or not,
Szechuan sauce.
I do remember the Szechuan sauce, Dragon. Believe it or not, but the thing about Tarzan is that my dad is a huge Edgar Rice Burroughs fan. He owns all of the volumes of the Mars books. He owns all of the volumes of the Tarzan books. He is just a diehard, like And, you know, granted, there are definitely some problematic things about Edgar Rice Burroughs with the depiction of the indigenous people and everything, and
Yeah.
it's not flattering to say the least.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But my dad likes them for what they are, and they are just very, very high concept pulp serial novels. And I say high concept for the time because for the time when those were written, Tarzan was basically like a superhero. You know what I mean? Like there was really there was really kind of like a savagery behind the character, but also just kind of like an inherent level of badass. And I think that level of badass kind of kept Tarzan going throughout the years in cinema and everything. But my dad always went back to the books. And my dad was always like, look, the Johnny Weissmuller stuff is fun. It's campy. But, you know, basically, Dragon, my dad would compare the Johnny Weissmuller stuff to like 60s Batman in terms of Tarzan. You know, it's like, it's fun and goofy in its own way, but it doesn't necessarily represent the core of the character. And so, Dragon, when this movie came out, my dad and I, man, I can't even tell you, this was like a very, very cool bonding experience we had because I had kind of grown up with those Tarzan books. I'm sure my dad censored them a little bit when he read them to me, but you know,
to be fair to Edgar Rice Burroughs, it was like the 19th century, all right. They give him just a little bit.
right. But I you know, I grew up with those books. I grew up with those stories. I grew up with the myth of Tarzan of the Apes. And so to see this movie fully realized on screen, Dragon, it was just a treat. And I do vividly remember the promotion for this movie. I remember, you know, the music video for You'll Be in My Heart. I remember all the stuff that the Disney Channel would do, like the Movie Surfers. Remember Movie Surfers, Dragon?
Do I remember
Movie Surfers?
Do I remember the Movie Surfers? Why do you? I'm offended. You even have to ask me a question like that.
So, I mean, suffice to say, just as someone who has Edgar Rice Burroughs fandom like running through their family, this is definitely a very satisfying film. And to this day, my dad, a great fan of the music. You know, he's one of those people where, you know, he could kind of take or leave the Phil Collins songs, to be sure. But my dad does very much agree that this is the closest representation that we've ever had on film to Edgar Rice Burroughs' actual interpretation of the Tarzan character. And the reason that is, Dragon, the reason that is because this is really the only adaptation that's like dove headfirst into the into what it's like to be a man in an ape's world. And that really was Edgar Rice Burroughs and his kind of philosophy on the character. And this movie definitely gets it right. I feel like this movie really hit it over the head with that theme. And I think it kind of made the estate proud. Dragon, I remember I remember reading in a book. This will be my last thought before I turn it over to you. I remember reading in a book that this film was screened for the Edgar Rice Burroughs estate, and there was like a crowd of people in the audience, and they all teared up, and one of them like approached the director and like thanked him for finally, after years, you know, after a whole lifetime, finally showing him his favorite character realized on screen. So for Tarzan fans, Dragon, this movie I feel like is pretty freaking cerebral. Like it is definitely, you know, it's a family movie to be sure. It's definitely not as brutal as Tarzan in the books is, to be sure. But I feel like it nails it, man. It kind of nails the core fundamentals of the struggles and the trials and tribulations of who Tarzan of the Apes is. All right, Dragon, I'll throw it over to you for background. I'm going to step away really quick just to grab a Red Bull. I will be right back, all right?
All right.
All right.
So, just want to mention this too, just for posterity's sake. That is the fun thing about Tarzan. I don't know, maybe subconsciously it's another reason I really kind of got a kick out of Tarzan, just the fact that he is somewhat of a superhero, and I believe one of those characters kind of predates, you know, the whole superhero kind of idea. So it's just kind of there for a long period, you know. It's very cool. So, Edgar Rice Burroughs, of course, he wrote. That's basically he's kind of going over here. Right, you know, he wrote Tarzan of the Apes, which of course led to a wonderful franchise, and so on and so forth. So many books, and basically the way the movie kind of comes into play here is Tom Schumacher. Tom Schumacher, for those who may not be aware, if the name seems a bit familiar, it should be. Tom Schumacher is kind of the guardian angel of good stuff at Disney. This guy. I recall, I believe he was brought in by Peter Schneider as kind of like one of the Broadway guys. I want to say, like one of his kind of contacts, kind of the Broadway industry. And Tom Schumacher, he did Lion King on Broadway. He's basically kind of one of the godfathers of the Lion King going to Broadway. And Tom Schumacher, he was involved in a lot of really great stuff during that '90s period of Disney. One of the biggest things I'm always going to laud Tom Schumacher for is basically being the voice in the room to tell Jeffrey Katzenberg when he was screwing around with Toy Story, like, what's wrong with it? Well, basically, well, how did this Black Friday cut of Toy Story go so wrong? Well, I'll tell you why. They followed all the notes that you gave him, Jeffrey. That's why it turned out so bad. So Tom Schumacher always being the guy defending the creative vision. I always loved that guy. So Tom Schumacher, essentially, from what I understand, he came to realize, wait, oh my God, there's never been a Tarzan animated movie made before, like a proper one. We've never seen that happen. Why haven't we done that? And basically kind of gets, that kind of greases the wheel of progress, and it kind of gets talked up. And of course, this is during that kind of developmental period at Disney again. Basically it's at the tail end of kind of the Waking, Sleeping Beauty years at Disney. So it's like at around '94, this is being developed. So of course, like basically, after the success of Lion King, basically there's kind of the change. Like this is right during that year in between of the changing powers of the who's going to lead Disney, that whole thing. So let's see. So,
I'm back, by the way.
Good. So, Tiki, there's a reason this movie is so good. It had a really good director on. Do you know who that director is?
You know what? Not off the top of my head, no.
Had two really good directors. We have Kevin Lima.
Okay.
Or sorry, Kevin Lima, I should say. Do you know who that is off the top of your head?
He's not the High School Musical guy, is he?
No,
that's Kenny Ortega.
That's Ortega. No, you're really gonna love who this guy is.
Okay, who is he?
Kevin Lima. Again, one of the reasons Tarzan is so good. Goofy movie director.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So he did this right after.
No, I didn't recognize the name.
And this is him coming right off a Goofy movie, Tiki. So again, this is in development around '94. So basically, Goofy movie comes out in '95. So basically, during that period, we're going to make the movie. Then I believe '95 rolls around. He's looking for his next project, and they come to him with, "Hey, why don't you do this Tarzan movie?" And essentially, this is going to make a long story short. Essentially, he comes around on that. He even brings on his buddy, who he's worked with on a bunch of other Disney projects, which is Chris Buck, the co-director of this movie. Of course, Chris Buck now very well known for the Frozen movies.
Sure.
At this point, too, he got to know him, I believe, on doing animation and character design on stuff like Brave Little Toaster, Rescuers Down Under, a little bit of Pocahontas. It Can't All Be Sunshine and Rainbows. What can I tell you? Exactly.
If he animated that dragon, then I praise the man.
Maybe. And then, honestly, the third of the trifecta of really great talent on this movie. Again, years ago, they'd done these things that just kind of stuck in our nostalgic crawls in the best of ways. You have Bonnie Arnold. Bonnie Arnold, of course, famously produced Toy Story. She did Toy Story. She did Tarzan. Of course, down the line, she did How to Train Your Dragon. She produced the trilogy of the How to Train Your Dragon movies. So Bonnie Arnold, quality producer.
Nice. It's interesting that a lot of the people that worked on this movie went on to work on movies that kind of defined the 2010s in terms of animation between Frozen and How to Train Your Dragon.
Oh, and one more thing, Kevin Lima. The other thing I forgot to mention he directed the Enchanted movie, the live action. That was him too.
Yeah, sure.
And that guy's got talent for days. Anyway. So let's see. So essentially, Kevin Lima, he basically studied the books studied mainly the first book of Tarzan of the Apes. He studied it for months, and he basically they singled on the hand moment, the big hands touching moment. That's where it all kind of came into focus of what the movie is, what the movie's about. Of course, I'm sure the Burrow fanatics will probably know this off the top of their head, but I was gonna throw it out there for novelty's sake. Here are a few of the major changes that they made to the story and adapting. Of course, 19th century, I got to update the material just the smooch.
You want to tell them about the Pygmies dragon?
Yeah, that's a thing. We're gonna have to cut out things like the Pygmies. No, in all seriousness, guys. Yeah, the point being, sticking to the core roots of the story. Some main things they really had to they kind of swap out or kind of change in some way, shape, or form was for example, big one. Kerchak is not the bad guy. Of course, the book's Kerchak. Yeah.
In the book, Kerchak is the bad guy.
That's what I'm saying. Like that's the switch that they made. So Kerchak was the bad guy instead of a Sabor the leopard killing Tarzan's parents. Hey, it was his budding father figure killed his parents.
Yeah. In the book, Kerchak was pretty much a bastard all the way through.
Again, Tiki, if you ever watch Legends of Tarzan, they do something kind of fun with that, where they make Kerchak's arch enemy is Tublat. So basically, it's like, what if you had that version of Kerchak from the book as a bad guy in the series? It's really cool.
Okay.
Anywho, sorry, getting back on point here. So Kerchak, they switched it so Kerchak was not the bad guy in this. They added Clayton. Clayton, of course, is kind of a deep cut. Well, it's not a deep cut thing. It's actually a very it's something really adherent to the story. Where in the books, Tarzan's real name was John Clayton, and he had a brother who was William Clayton, and that's kind of what they did with Clayton here. But of course, it kind of took out the brother element. So Clayton was just kind of added completely in the way you see him here versus what Clayton usually is. Clayton's usually like a royal. I don't want to bore you with the details of the Tarzan book series, but
Would you say Clayton even more lame than Ratcliffe?
no, I would not say. I really liked Clayton, but that
okay. Fair enough.
Let's see. And also, they nixed the big idea of Tarzan going to England by Act 3 of the book. They kind of teased, they gild the lily on that here, where you think Tarzan's going to London by Act 3, to England in Act 3, but that is not the case. A few little fun facts here and there. Brendan Fraser, the audition for Tarzan. This is kind of what gets him to doing George of the Jungle a year or so, around the same time. Believe it or not, I won't dwell on this, but believe it or not, Ants gets the whole thing that is Ants versus Bugs Life gets started here, where Katzenberg basically coerces Woody Allen to doing an animated movie.
Really?
Where Woody Allen auditioned for Tantor. From what I hear, Woody Allen auditioned
for
Tantor.
Oh, wow.
And basically, he didn't get it, but Katzenberg was involved with the early development right before he left Disney, being the idea. Like 94,
Katzenberg is just like, you want an animated character, Woody? I won't just give you an animated character. I'll give you the whole damn movie. It'll be B-movie before B-movie, Woody.
God. The point being, he says, hey, let's do an animated movie together. And of course, years later, that'll be like, hey, let's do Ants. Because, we'd have to turn them down for the Tantor, but hey, keep my number, Woody. Essentially, that's it. But that's again, that last year, Katzenberg did get a lot of things accomplished, to say the least. Anyway. So let's see. So they do a lot of research trips, as you tend to do with a Disney production. They went to Kenya, they went to a bunch of zoos, they went to Uganda, mainly for the gorillas. Do a lot of really neat stuff like that. Big thing, the deep canvas technique. So the deep canvas technique, for those who may not be aware, it's kind of an evolution of the CAPS system. This is kind of like kind of CAPS. It's like CAPS 2.0, one might say. This is where we're doing a kind of a 3D background technique. Where basically that's where all these scenes where Tarzan is like swimming through the vines or he's like surfing the vines, you'll notice the backgrounds are 2D, but they're moving so well. And the reason we're doing that's because of that 3D background technique called deep canvas. Basically a deep canvas in the background.
Movie surfers just hyped up that tree surfing thing like hardcore.
That they did. And speaking of which, so the reason all that looks as good as it does, Glen Keane, of course, famously, did the Part of Your World sequence from Little Mermaid. I think that's one of his finest examples of animation that he's done personally. I think that little Part of Your World sequence is sublime. But Glen Keane, animator extraordinaire, he basically did he supervised the animation on Tarzan, which means he commanded like 11 or 12 guys working on the team of, let's team Tarzan, man. Let's animate him like he's never been animated before. And fun fact, Glen Keane's son was into extreme sports and skateboarding and everything. And that kind of gives him the idea, like, when Tarzan's surfing through the vines, let's let him surf like Tony Hawk. And they actually went to Tony Hawk and they kind of studied him for the style and everything. So it's really neat.
Nice.
Also, Tarzan's the first Disney character ever to have actual muscle animation, like the actually animated character. They have to pay attention, like the musculature and everything. Because remember, like he's it sounds so weird, but again, because he's in a loincloth for the whole movie, you're going to see all the musculature moving with the way he's going through his lines, like walking on his hands like a gorilla and everything. You have to pay attention to those details. So it's really impressive. It's really impressive. And of course, one last thing for you, T. I'm sure you're going to get a kick out of this. They're doing this movie. Of course, they know like they're trying to live up to Disney's two other jungle-related movies, with Jungle Book and The Lion King, especially post Lion King. And a little production running gag throughout the whole thing was they called it the Loin King.
Oh God.
Like a silly gag, you know, like, yeah, we know we're competing with another King of the Jungle story. Yeah, yeah. That's all she wrote.
Okay, folks, so we are going to divide this up by acts, and we're going to go through this as kind of, with as much levity as we can and as much brevity as we can. But let's start with Act 1, Dragon, Son of Man!
Yes. So one of the big standouts for this movie is the opening.
Yeah, that Shipwreck, man. That Shipwreck used to terrify me as a kid. The scale of it was just so immense.
I love story-wise what we're doing here. I love how the origin of Tarzan unfolds, and we have like we parallel man and ape already, even before Tarzan's a character in the movie. We see the two worlds in question for the grand arc of the movie, and we're not shying away from the danger of the jungle and getting there. Apparently, when you travel by ship, never travel by ship in a Disney movie. Never do it.
Yeah, but you know what? I just want to point out, Dragon, that, again, I will reiterate, this shipwreck is freaking terrifying. Like, compare this shipwreck to the one in Frozen.
Of course, there's so many ridiculous fan theories about there being a relation because Chris Buck
I'm not
directed.
talking about those fan theories. I'm just comparing the two shipwrecks.
No, you're right. No, I know you're.
It's like the one in Frozen, they just kind of like gently go down under the waves. This is like a mountain of fire. It's like hellfire raining down on them.
Yep. Absolutely. And remember, it's not just that while we have that going on, remember what the other half of that is, Tiki. Remember, so while that's happening,
Right.
we have Kerchak and Kala. It's just kind of like happy. Kerchak's happy for a change, for example. Kerchak and Kala, they are parents themselves initially, with the with a baby ape, and unfortunately that ape is again eaten by is attacked and murdered and most likely consumed by Sabre the leopard. At the start of a Disney movie, I mean, look, there's killing the parents. We killed the children at the start of this thing before we even killed the parents. That's terrifying.
For kids. Do-do-do-do-do.
But seriously, that's kind of like that's kind of your Burroughs thing in effect there, where we're not shying away from the danger of the jungle because again, the jungle in itself is somewhat of a character within this movie, how it shapes people and all that sort of stuff. Almost the Gotham of the jungles, one might say. So ultimately,
it does. I do really like. This is where I will defend Phil Collins. Dragon is. I feel like Phil Collins is kind of like a musical narrator. I don't think it works in Brother Bear at all. All right, I want to reiterate that. I really don't think it works in Brother Bear. And Brother Bear really should have been more subtle than it is. But with Tarzan, I feel like because Tarzan just starts out so bombastically with the Phil Collins music already in place from the very get-go, and the two worlds, one family thing, like really kind of like setting the stage for like essentially a thesis statement for the whole piece. I think that Phil Collins' narration is pretty much it's an artistic choice, and it's a bold artistic choice, Dragon. I really appreciate it.
I echo the sentiments. There's only one song I'm not crazy about. But I do applaud. I don't have a problem with the Phil Collins thing at all, with the exception of his one song. That's a taste thing, so it's not even an issue with the movie. I like the whole narrator idea as well.
What's the
honestly,
one
for
song
me,
you don't like?
I'm not crazy about the God, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the heart song. You'll be in my heart. That one, you'll be in my heart.
Oh, you'll be in my heart. Oh, well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Sure. But regardless, I do like for example, I think it more so in certain parts. It's like you're right. It is more. I think at the end of the day, you're right. It's more narrator than I'm saying like Tarzan's inner monologue in certain places. But obviously, that kind of defeats the point. Well, again, it's before he's really a character in the thing. So you have
Brother Bear was totally inner monologue, and that's why it didn't work in Brother Bear.
Mm-hmm.
This, it was more kind of like kind of like expressing the themes. You know what I mean?
Speaking of those, so again, I like that for one, again, both stories are linked by this leopard. By the way, I like that the leopard is so much the bad guy of Act 1 too. By the way, where we have Sabre the leopard is what kind of binds our two stories together and puts everything into play. In which, of course,
Sabre is like one of these weird like mini villains in the Disney canon. Where she's only a villain for the first act of the movie, but for the first act of the movie, she pretty much has a complete arc.
very brutally kills 3 characters, within the
Right?
first
It's
5
like
minutes.
she definitely has a kill list for sure.
Kills a baby, kills a baby ape, and kills. And here's the thing, Tiki, we've killed parents in Disney movies before, but I would argue again, it goes under the radar. This might be one of those brutal examples of killing a parent in a Disney movie because we see the bodies after after they're freshly killed, and I don't mean like a stampede or anything. I mean freshly, like killed, and their bloody paw prints.
Right, right.
Oh God. Anyway, so speaking of which, so this brings us to a big sell for me. So you spoke of the marketing earlier and kind of held off on this so we can get to the sequence. The big teaser footage that they played for Tarzan always stuck it with me, and one of the reasons I really wanted to see the movie.
Fight. Yeah, it's all coming back to me, Dragon. Yeah, for sure.
So we got to talk about Kala here. So like the first intro we had, the real proper intro we have to Kala outside, the tragic opening is Kala. Basically at the tail end of that song, she hears the baby crying, and she kind of runs off in the other direction there, and she finds Tarzan in the treehouse and kind of stumbles upon the bodies and everything. But this teaser footage, it's so. I mean, it's not just teaser footage, but that's kind of the shorthand for me, so bear in mind. But regardless, it's just that sequence where she's finding Tarzan, and I love how visual the direction is in this movie. Like everything you need to know, even if you're not following along, everything is there. Like she finds the cracked picture. We say, okay, mother, father, child, and she sees the bloody paw prints. Like they don't have to explicitly say what happened. You know what happened, especially after what you saw. Sabre chasing that baby ape. Everything that's unfolded here, and of course, if it didn't get driven home, dead bodies. And then she finds Tarzan. Some really great bonding. We have the hand motif put into play. Even at
that. I love the hand motif. We'll come back to that for sure.
Scott Derrickson would love this movie. I'll say that much.
Not all Scott Derrickson movies have the hand motif. It's not like that's his Tarantino fetish, all right?
They do now. We'll see how Doctor Strange 2 goes, but they do now.
God.
In all seriousness. But yeah, it's an ingenious bond, Colin Tarzan's dynamic, because she's trying to replace the child that she lost in Tarzan. It's a harrowing escape in which, again, I love when we save people in movies, and we kind of do that here. She's saving an infant. It's a great harrowing sequence too, where
I love how they use the net under the treehouse.
Yes. Oh, this on top of these are the little touches. I mean, think about this, Steve. Like trying to save the baby, and of course you realize, oh god, you grabbing the baby by the diaper, and of course the diaper's just like it won't. Just it's like the square. It's blocked through a circular hole. It's not going to fit. It's not going to work. And then she finds out the little touch in the animation where she, again being an ape, she's trying to pull him through, doesn't work, and she finds that she's sliding him around. Like, hey, oh my god, there's a little crack in the floorboard. I can get him out that way. Hooray! Eureka! It's like yes, and all of this happening while Sabre is trying to claw her way through the netting and everything. He's trying to find her balance. It's such a wonderfully tense scene. Oh god, it's great.
And of course, the treehouse is so iconic that they did make an attraction out of it, Dragon.
Sure.
And Dragon, guess what you do in the treehouse?
What do you do in the treehouse?
You go upstairs and then downstairs.
Yeah, I figured you were going there with it. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
The point is, one harrowing rescue later. Again, we hit upon just kind of the ingenious bond of these two characters, kind of both filling kind of a loss in the other's life, and also kind of explains Tarzan's confused upbringing of like, am I ape or am I man? He's kind of from birth, he's kind of essentially raised as a gorilla.
Right. Okay, Dragon, can I defend "You'll Be in My Heart"?
Yeah, sure, go on.
I know it's like the big radio hit of this movie, and that's fine if people think it's overplayed. But I do think it's pretty beautiful in the context of the actual film, because it's like, I mean, I don't have to sit here and explain, like, oh, "You'll Be in My Heart" is about the bonding between a mother and a new son. And it's, no, you all get that. You all get what the song's about. Dragon, one thing I will say, and I've heard other people bring this up, and I totally agree with it. This is probably going to be my one area to nitpick Phil Collins in terms of, like, I like the song itself. I really like the song itself. I think the song itself is beautiful. I like it a lot better than the other radio friendly like Disney love song of the time, which is "Can You Feel the Love Tonight." I feel like this song is way better than that song.
I'll echo that sentiment. Okay, I'll give you that much. It is way better.
But Dragon, I think the problem is like the song starts with Kala singing it to baby Tarzan as a lullaby. And I honestly think they could have just done that whole song as a lullaby. And that's where I feel like you're getting at with the Phil Collins, like Phil Collins coming in to, put that kind of like signature into the song. I didn't feel like we needed Phil Collins in that moment. I feel like we could have just got by. I feel like we kind of cheated Kala out of the song. Like I said, I like the song itself. I just don't necessarily like Phil Collins's placement in it.
I never thought of it that way. I think you're on to something there. I think that might be it.
All right.
All right. So, another thing I want to kind of get in there while we're talking about kind of the Kala Tarzan thing, real quick, before we just kind of bridge into this kind of the younger Tarzan of it all. I would call it, there's like an emotional missing link, I would kind of coin it as in this movie. And that's kind of like what that dynamic between, Tarzan and Kala is. Basically, again, the non-musical version of You'll Be in My Heart, kind of the theme of the movie. It's sort of that, it's sort of like, Tarzan less is like, oh my God, he's an actual missing link, where it's not necessarily that. It's a guy kind of caught between, he's kind of choosing between the two worlds. But again, that, that emotional missing link and that where do I fit in the things. And it's more like how he defines where he fits himself. It's sort of that,
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. Let's. Yeah. So basically, Act One predominantly begins like kind of I believe like the kind of the 5-year-old or kind of younger Tarzan of it all in Act One here. So this is basically a kid trying to fit into a gorilla family that he's very much he very much sticks out from. But I love that.
Yeah, this is probably my least favorite section of the movie, if I'm being honest.
Really?
Yeah. I just don't necessarily think that all the kid antics kind of age necessarily that well. I feel like it's pretty much a product of the 90s to have like oh my God, a goofy kid who's going on wacky adventures with his Rosie O'Donnell psychic.
I won't lie, not my favorite part, but not a problem at all. Like I still, I kind of like this.
It's not a problem.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like in terms of like in terms of like memorable stuff from this movie, this section doesn't really stand out. You know what I mean?
All right. Well, I mean, the big thing of it in this sequence, I like how we kind of introduce, Turk and Tantor. Specifically, Turk, essentially the dynamics there is like, Turk is very much kind of a sisterly figure in Tarzan's life. Kind of like a friend, or again, maybe like girl next door is like the completely wrong term, but you know what I mean. It's like not a direct sister, but kind of like the older sister mentor. Each other, like, hey guys, let me play along. It's kind of like she's like leaving the younger brother behind, sort of thing.
Yeah, sure.
And you have Tantor. Tantor just at the end of the day, it's kind of like this. So again, you have like a brother sister relationship that kind of where she ends up marveling at Tarzan, as many others do within the gorilla family. But she is like, okay, I was initially skeptical of this kid, but you know what? He's actually cool, and over time, it was like, oh man, Tarzan's awesome, man. Like, yeah, go Tarzan. And on the flip side of that, you have Tantor, who's kind of the polar opposite of Tarzan, where Tarzan is a fearless character, where Tantor is fearful of everything, even bacteria in the water.
Okay, fun fact. Did you know that Turk is an absolute asshole in the book?
Really? I didn't know Turk was in the book.
Yeah, Turk, first of all, is a male rival of Tarzan's.
I did hear they changed the gender on Turk. I didn't know it was based on anything. I heard that because Rosie O'Donnell came in.
But second of all, Dragon, the rivalry between Tarzan and Turk in the book runs pretty damn deep. And I gotta say, a lot of the prejudice that Kerchak exhibits towards Tarzan is pretty much Turk's wheelhouse. Like, because with Kerchak in the book, it's more about being the alpha and less about the prejudice, right?
Yeah.
And with Turk, it's more about the prejudice. Like Turk is all about the anti-human. And so yeah, they totally changed that around for the movie.
Sure. I mean, yeah, when you really look at it that way, it is a really smart idea to do that, though. Because it plays a lot better. Where okay, there's a bit of an arc there now. We have some kind of friendships that are developing from this instead of like basically all that story is kind of serviced within our Kerchak stuff.
I mean, let's face it. If they would have kept Turk as she was in the book, then she would have been like a secondary antagonist, and we already have a secondary antagonist in this movie, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of more true to human relationships, especially if you're going to have them like as kids. Which again, if you're introduced Tarzan, that's when all that would start anyway. So it would kind of have to be in childhood we would see something like this, where yeah, okay, Turk would just kind of reject initial like, not necessarily in this case, not necessarily reject Tarzan, but like, I don't want to. He's embarrassing me, man, because my mom's a friend of his mom's, and he's just going to be hanging around all the time. I don't, we'll send him on the elephant hair, Aaron, that whole thing. And yeah, it's it kind of turns out. Here, let me put it this way. Okay, the young Tarzan stuff on the whole, I feel this section is tremendously well plotted. Say what you will of it, because think about this, T. As well, broad spectrum, just all the young Tarzan stuff. We go from the adoption to the elephant hair, and through this elephant hair sequence, he makes friends. We have Kerchak's rejection of Tarzan in the aftermath of this whole elephant hair section, which then leads to the Son of Man. That's tremendously well plotted. We're doing a lot within our first half
No,
hour.
you're not wrong. It's definitely well plotted for sure. Like I said, I think probably my only issue with it is just the fact that it's just like kind of like '90s kids cliches. Honestly,
That's fair. That's fair. Well, again, to each his own.
Yeah.
Anywho, so
But
one
then
other
again,
thing.
I'm talking about someone. You're talking to someone who fucking unironically loves. No, I can't say. I can't say unironically. I'd be lying to myself if I said unironically. I ironically love rocket power dragon.
So speaking of which, so real quick, Son of Man, kind of the montage we have there, Son of Man, where he.
Son of Man is one of my favorite songs.
It's a good one. Don't get me wrong. It's another. It's not my favorite in the movie. It's a really good one though. It's like
It's not my favorite in the movie either, but I still think it's a banger.
It is, absolutely is. What I really like about it too is that as a montage, honestly, I think Tarzan is some of the best montages in a Disney film. Personally, I don't know if that's just me or
And
what.
yeah, Dragon, I'm sorry to throw shade on the other fucking Disney jungle movie. I think this montage of the kid turning into an adult is a lot more satisfying than that other montage of the kid turning into an adult.
See, this is the frustrating thing. Every time I was here, that's not you two. It's just every time I want to give praise to like Tarzan being the best one of the best Disney films with a montage. I always have trouble thinking about other montages and other Disney movies. But when I do that, sometimes you run into these things like, and like, is that really a montage though? He's just walking across a log, really.
No, it's really not. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like
that's the every time I want to compare
it's the time lapse Dragon. I believe that literally the correct terminology would be a time lapse.
Yeah, but yes, you're right. That is the proper terminology. But you know what I mean? It's like every time I want to see if Tarzan actually cuts the mustard up against any other montage, I keep blanking.
But I do love that epic shot of like baby like 5-year-old Tarzan jumping into the water and then adult Tarzan jumping out of the water. Like that is some good framing right there.
Exactly. And what I love too in this sequence is that
I like that a lot better than the fucking log walk.
Yeah. And the grand scheme of that too, I like that Tarzan as a character is using the fact that he is not a full blown ape as a way he can do things that apes can't do.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, he's learned. Basically, Tarzan is one of the great learning characters, even in the book, and they really capture that element of him very well here. Where Tarzan's a character, he learns things, he picks things up. In this case, he's learned all sorts of skills from other animals that he's kind of been able to befriend. And of course, the relationship between him, Turk, and Tantra is kind of an example of him. Like he's not just all friendly with the gorillas. He kind of commands many facets of the jungle. He's learned many things. He's a great mimic, for example, and that he can kind of do the voices and kind of communicate with all the animals in the jungle. It's really that good. It's really cool.
Sure.
So the point being, so after Son of Man, Tarzan is all aged up, and then we hit kind of the really unique thing about Tarzan is each act kind of ends in kind of a big kind of a climax to each act almost. There's kind of an action set.
A climax that features Kerchak.
Oddly enough, like usually Kerchak's kind of the fun kind of bookmark to each
Kerchak is just kind of like the apex of the whole plot, I think.
I mean, he is the spine of the movie. When you're the relationship between him and Tarzan is the spine of the movie when you really look at it that way. Because again, the rejection of the new father, we had that really great scene with Kerchak when he initially said, Kala, and I love the performance on Kerchak too. By the way, where basically Kerchak is saying to Kala at the get go, like, he's not good. He's not all like, get that thing away from me. He's not like that quite yet. But he's saying, Kala, he's never going to replace the one that we lost. It's like that's a really tender scene to his wife there. And of course, he gets then over time like, I said he can stay. He's not going to be my son. Like that's a fascinating relationship to put in a Disney movie, like the ultimate daddy issue movie you're going to have.
It is kind of the ultimate daddy issue Disney movie, really. when you
Because
break
that's
it
the
down
thing.
like
Because
that.
he's not his father, and Tarzan knows that, but he wants to please him all the same, and it's great.
Yeah, for sure.
Just leave it to Kevin Lima to do all the great father-son stories. Just let him do them all.
Naturally.
God.
But no, I love another thing I love is that, it's not just Tarzan, like we empathize with why Tarzan wants Kerchak to respect him, because Kerchak is a figure that commands a level of respect. And if you don't have Kerchak's respect, then you don't necessarily have a place in the community. You know what I mean? And they do a great job of doing that hierarchy. And Dragon, that right there, what we're talking about, this is one of the things that my dad absolutely loves about this movie, is the fact that this movie is willing to go there into the ape hierarchy. I mean, we don't have we don't have Turk being a complete, racist about the whole thing in this movie, but we do definitely have undertones of that.
Sure. Let's see. So,
right, good stuff.
So we have to talk about the big Sabre sequence. Oh my god, the Sabre sequence is one of the great action sequences in the whole movie. Oh my goodness.
Dude, it really is. It really is.
So this is a big climax, Act 1. Again, we have kind of our villain. Again, think about just the importance that we have thrust upon Sabre. It's like Batman going up against Joe Chill, almost. It's like, you want to kill your parents and kill Kerchak's actual son? It's like, oh my god. Like,
right.
All the stakes, man. And one of the great things, too, is
it'd be like if Joe Chill also killed Barbara Gordon.
Sure. In a sense, yeah. It's also, anyway, so... Okay, but what's really great too is, like, again, we're also kind of continuing the theme of, like, again, the jungle, nature can be deadly in the sense, like, Sabre kind of comes out of left field again, like a leopard actually would, where the leopards kind of be in the shadows and just kind of pop out of there and attack you. And we have
that moment where Tarzan is just like, he pauses and he's just like, oh shit, something's about to go down. You're not sure quite what. I got to admit, Dragon, when I first saw the movie, or not when I first saw it, but like on my rewatch, because keep in mind, I haven't revisited this in probably a good 15 years, my friend. It's been quite a while.
Wow.
Yeah, so like on my rewatch, Dragon, when that moment came up of Tarzan stopping at the bush, I got to admit I was kind of fooled, because I thought it was going to be like, my memory was kind of like that this was where Kerchak was going to, or I'm sorry, that Clayton was going to come into play. So I thought Tarzan was like staring at a gun or something. And so, even for someone who's seen the movie, that moment still plays fantastically well on a suspense level.
Most haunting detail in that, Tiki, is that if you look really closely, well, basically it's like, because you're so wrapped up in the moment that you don't notice it. That Sabre is just kind of there waiting. If you really look, if you pause, you just see Sabre waiting there, and then just like it just jumps out like, oh god, it's great. So this leads to a stellar action sequence in which Tarzan is kind of putting the skills that we kind of introduced in the Son of Man section, really in the practice.
I love how the roar is built up. By the way, that was one of the things I really appreciated on the build up, or on the rewatch, I should say.
Absolutely,
the yell. The Tarzan yell.
Yep, the classic kind of Weissmuller-esque yell, the classic, the Tarzan yell. I know that it's not exactly a Weissmuller yell, but when you think of the Tarzan yell,
it is the Weissmuller yell. Weissmuller established that.
Exactly.
If I could give one thing to Weissmuller, it's that.
So again, you have like Tarzan. Think about this: the end of Act, 30 minutes into the movie, because basically the layout of this whole film was 30 minutes, or at least under 30 minutes per act. Like, I think it's 30.
This film has a pretty damn rigid 3-act structure to it of 30 minutes per act, and I kind of appreciate it for that.
No, it's
like I would teach this film in film school as an example of 3-act structure. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So in this already, so Tarzan's going up against the murderer of his parents and all this stuff without even knowing it. He doesn't even know this, but we, the audience, do. So we're getting an extra kick. My god, like, he's got to take this thing down. It's a classic Tarzan sequence, but done in a way you've never seen, done in a way that you never would have seen before this point. Where, it would have been cool, but it never would have been this cool back in the old Tarzan movies that they have done. It never never has looked this great, and
I don't think it would ever be as cool in like a new CG movie either, to tell you the truth.
Exactly, because one of the great details I love how they use lighting, because there is a lighting theme to this movie. It's almost like a Breaking Bad color scheme. What they're doing here is the idea is that Tarzan in this fight, he hides in the darkness, like he goes in this log for a part of the fight. And basically Sabre is like clawing its way through the log, and like this piercing ray of light is there. So the idea is that light the piercing light is danger. Every time that light shows, or later on, like the color red with the lighting and everything, the point is like piercing bright like light. That's the source of danger for Tarzan in a scene. It's a great idea, and I love how that looks. Again, it adds like color, but it's not just doing it half-assed. It's like color in a sense, like it adds tension to the scene even more so than it already is.
Oh yeah.
So that's all great. So the battle, of course, if too in the plotting of the battle too, because Tarzan has this spear, and through the course of the fight, and Tarzan's getting some battle damage there, and like the spear breaks, and you can see the tip of the spear goes down. Basically, Tarzan, he allows himself to fall, and in falling, it's a race to who gets to that thing first. Who's going to get, like, is Sabre going to get Tarzan on the way down first, or is Tarzan going to get the tip of the spear to kind of the kill Sabre? And of course, like, falls through, and everyone's like, oh god, who's going to win? And we have Sabre rising out, like, seemingly moving, but it's just, again, like, we have corpse movement in a Disney movie too. Like, that's so rare. And again, the Kerchak of all is that he presents Sabre to Kerchak. And of course, this is really meaningful towards Kerchak because, one, again, it's a big show of respect to Kerchak. He's not saying, look what I did. It's like, no, this is for you, our fearless leader. He's deferring to the Alpha. And also, it's like to Kerchak, like, oh my god, this thing killed my son. Like, again, this is a big moment. It's like a moment where he kind of, it's a proud of your boy moment, but interrupt. It's proud of your boy, interrupt us.
Oh god.
So essentially interrupted by literally the call of Act 2. One of the symbols of Act 2 is that gunshot sound. And it's just so well played, it's so well plotted and perfect. I love it. Okay, that brings us to Act 2.
All right, so Act 2 is Strangers Like Me.
Strangers Like Me.
I gotta say, I think the song choices for these acts are pretty on point, Dragon.
That they are. So I love Act 2 of this movie. I really do.
You know what's interesting about the rewatch, Dragon, is that this act does go by relatively quickly, but we get a lot out of it. I think a lot of the reason we do get a lot out of it is that this is a very montage-heavy act. It might be one of the most montage-heavy acts of a Disney movie. But I feel like it uses those montages to its advantage.
You know what's trippy? There are only 2 montages in the movie.
It's this one and then Son of Man, right?
Exactly, but again, yeah, but they're so good. They're so well done.
Like I guess, yeah. I guess Strangers Like Me is Dragon. Can we agree that Strangers Like Me is maybe the best song in the film?
Tiki, it's my favorite part of the movie. Yes.
Okay, fair enough.
Strangers Like Me is my favorite song, my favorite part of the movie. If I a gun to my head, I will easily say Strangers Like Me is the best sequence. I want to build that for. We'll get there. Okay, we're almost. Okay. First, let's talk about a big crux of Strangers Like Me, because one little detail as well. I like Tarzan, kind of almost a little bit detective work on Tarzan here, like, kind of finding the shell casings and everything, kind of like basically Tarzan the tracker is in play here, and it's great.
Which is definitely a big part of the book, is
absolutely
Tarzan's tracking skills, for sure.
I haven't read all the books, but I'll tell you, what I can remember of those Tarzan books, those are some of my favorite parts when he's doing the tracking.
Oh yeah, big time.
Of course, in the animated show too, it's like one of my favorite parts. You're like, oh, God, look him do that track, and it's great. Anywho, so let's talk about Jane Porter.
Jane Porter is hands down probably one of the best female Disney characters ever, honestly.
Seconded. Absolutely seconded. I mean,
Dragon, would you like to know a fun fact?
I would love to know a fun fact.
We actually have a little bit of a 6 degrees of separation connection to Jane Porter.
We do.
So Jacob Gulliver, our beloved Jacob Gulliver of Super Academy.
Yes.
His second cousin was the rotoscoping model for some of the shots of Jane Porter.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, so it's, a little 6 degrees of separation there.
Wow.
So Jacob Gulliver knows somebody who was modeled for some of the Jane Porter stuff.
So more like 6.5 degrees of separation.
Right, but still, I thought it was kind of a cool tidbit.
It is, yeah, it was cool, yeah.
Yeah.
So, Jane, I absolutely.
One of my mom's ex-boyfriends, his ex-girlfriend's cousin is fucking Mohinder Suresh.
Oh,
true story. Absolutely true story.
Really? Dr. Suresh?
Yes. One of my mom's ex-boyfriends, one of his ex-girlfriends, one of her cousins is Mohinder Suresh.
I'm gonna need a flow chart or something soon if we keep going down this path. Okay. Regardless, so again, villain on season 6 of The Flash aside here, getting back on point. Again, cigar. So Jane, of course, we have the proper English woman, of course, played by the wonderful Minnie Driver, voice wise, not not rotoscoping model wise, but that's good to know. She is, she basically is kind of surveying the jungle. Of course, she's there with her father, played by the wonderful Archimedes Q. Porter. They're there to kind of study the gorillas, and she's kind of a surveyor.
I love the father's design, by the way. Can we just get some love for Mr. Porter?
I love Mr. Honestly, what's so funny? Because again,
I love the combination of the tiny stature and the giant mustache.
I think if you like Porter, man, if you liked Porter here, that's more of a reason for you to watch Legend of Tarzan, because he's played by Jeff Bennett. He's even better in the series, man.
Oh my God, Jeff Bennett! Oh wow,
it's one of his great roles when you really look. He's so good in that show. Anyway, I'm sorry. Getting back on point. So yeah, that's the thing. So they're a survey. Honestly, it's kind of like she's like kind of a 19th century surveyor to an extent. There, the idea is this is kind of like your proper English woman. But again, I like that she's kind of in the middle on the spectrum here between kind of like being in the wild like Tarzan is and being kind of the prim and proper kind of English woman. But again, like she is that prim and proper English woman. By the same token, again, like she's out
she's
there.
In distress, but she's not a damsel.
We see her become more capable as it goes on. I think she starts off maybe as a damsel, but then quickly kind of fades away. So that's good.
Okay.
But importantly, though, it's the fact that I like the fact that she took the initiative. Like, she didn't need to go out there. Her fathers need to go out there. Like, she's there. She's bringing something to the team. She's, my point is she's proactive. That's kind of what I'm getting at here. She's very proactive. So, like, she's a proactive damsel, if anything, and then becomes kind of fades away from the damsel of it all there. So, anyway. So that's the thing. I love that she is on the opposite end of the spectrum in regards to Tarzan, which kind of makes some really great pairing and a great dynamic for the film with that relationship. But again, like, her drive is what brought her out there, and she with all of that. So that's nice. And she has this. And again, this is where we bring back the emotional missing link of it all with that hands moment. Of course, the hands moment really comes into play here, where it's, oh my God, I love that. After the baboon sequence, which we should just name drop there for a second. Oh God, the baboon sequence. What do you think?
Oh, the baboon. That's another just really killer chase scene.
Yeah. Of course, all started with the most ridiculous of things. She draws a drawing of a monkey, and she upsets the monkey, and the monkey goes to the baboons. So ridiculous, but again, I love the movie has fun, and there's comedy within the movie, but we're not losing the stakes at all here. There are, again, the danger of the jungle is persistent. One wrong move and you could be dead. But
for sure.
It's great. So this leads to, of course, Tarzan rescuing her. It's a really great sequence there. A lot of vine surfing, and as you'd imagine, and this leads ultimately to the hands moment. The hands moment is probably my second favorite moment in the whole movie. This is just the animation on this is great. There's so much humanity in this moment. I like that the moment, of course, he removes the glove, and they kind of put the gorilla hand goes to a human hand, and he kind of realizes, oh my God, there's someone else. There's someone else like me. Again, the whole strangers like me of it all. I love that this is not just it's not just a romantic relationship that they have, especially in this moment. It's not love at first sight, at least not reciprocated. It's not like he's not in love with her off the bat, and maybe she's kind of falling for him, but she's not there yet. Like, she's not in love with him. She's kind of like, she's interested by him. One thing, it's not initially romantic, but Tarzan in this moment realizes he is not alone, and this continues the greater arc of his journey of identity. Like, who am I? Am I a gorilla? Am I a missing link? What the heck am I? And overall, I think, in this moment, she falls for the humanity beneath, as she has that great moment. If you look at the animation on Tarzan's eyes, just eye animation can be really great when you do it right. And it's like his eyes kind of change shape, but very, very ever so slightly,
The great thing about that is that it's an illustration of how powerful 2D animation can be. And Dragon, this whole movie is kind of a testament to that. And watching this movie, I do think it's a shame that 2D Disney movies would soon become delegitimized. Like, I feel like the last gasp of a great 2D Disney movie came a few years after this with Lilo and Stitch. And then after that, I mean, that's.
Absolutely, yes. Lilo and Stitch was again one of the great things. We still had great 2D animation, but Lilo and Stitch is definitely kind of the kind of the last great high point before they shut the lights off on 2D animation, unfortunately. But yeah,
Yeah, so I'm just saying, it was, it's really refreshing to see like really great 2D animation again from Disney. Anyway,
absolutely. So,
right.
but you know what's fun? Just
I don't know why I'm dropping like this, but go ahead. Sorry.
speaking of the eye animation, too, again, so trippy when you think of, we have like two moments of great eye animation. The second moment, the eyes don't even move because it's on a chalkboard. But again, it's kind of the emotion of the scene, and again, like it's a drawing of a drawing that has the same heft of that earlier moment with the eye animation. Yeah, trippy that is. Where it's like she's describing that moment with Tarzan that we just saw unfold to her father and to Clayton. Again, doing it with a chalkboard. Which we leave you in the blackboard alone. This is a great moment.
Right.
And overall, so of course again, so Tarzan again is humanity. There's humanity beneath the unusual presentation before her, and that's kind of the stakes of that. That's kind of the beginnings of that relationship. And in the end, they're kind of united by learning about each other's world, which is an ingenious idea.
Mhm.
I mean, there's also a
All right.
lot of great comedy with them too. I love we have such great humor followed by sweet sincerity with that relationship.
Gorilla!
It's just like all that stuff. It's so funny too. Like he just listens to. He thinks Clayton the gunshot is like Clayton. He thinks that's what a gunshot's called. And the whole the I'm Jane. We see basically Tarzan's mimic ability in play here. Basically, he hears sounds and he can interpret. And that's how he can speak the languages and everything of all the animals. And that's how.
Dragon, would this have really been that hard to add into Pocahontas?
Not really.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how is it that this movie does like the language barrier better than Pocahontas does?
I mean, like think about this too. Like you have like he has some fun tongue in cheek gags too. Like he's tickling her, and then of course he begins to look under the dress. She kicks him in the face, and you get away with that too. It's like, oh god, again followed by such a and zero and just. I'm sorry, I'm just geeking out about it right now. Forgive me. It's the fact that after a moment like that of comedy, then you go from that like in less than 5 seconds, you then go to kind of the heart of the scene with the hands moment. Think about it, that
Yeah,
you
yeah,
get
for
away with
sure.
that. Then, of course, right after that, then we do the heart gag where it's like he's kind of listening to her heartbeat and he grabs her head and puts her down there, listening to his heartbeat. And of course, name introductions and so on and so forth. Point being, we do things just right, and again, kind of like savage and civility meet each other. It's an absolutely great pairing, and yet another backbone of the movie. Maybe it's like a vertebrae within the. If Kurt checks the spine, this is a vertebrae. I don't know. It's important, is what I'm saying. We spoke a lot about the music already, and we kind of spoke about the montage. Let's talk about mainly about the Strangers Like Me montage.
Yeah, so I mean, I first of all the slideshow, the use of the slideshow is just genius
Mm-hmm.
to show the progression and to show how he's learning.
Oh
And
god,
I
yeah.
just I love the animation and how into it he is and how passionate he is to learn more and more.
Yes, and again we see
Dragon,
Tarzan.
this song is like the ultimate like advocate for education. You know
It
what I mean?
is. It really is.
This song is like the "I'll make a man out of you" of education.
Oh my god, you're right. Yes, yes. Look, Strangers Like Me again. As I mentioned earlier, this is absolutely my favorite. One of the all-time great Disney montages. Again, I can't. Again, so frustrating because I don't know what the other Disney montages are off the top of my head. I don't know why it's so difficult, but I mean, there's that, and I guess Mulan with. I guess if you loop in
I'll
the
make a
song.
man out of you is definitely a montage.
See, that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. Here's the confusing part. When you say montage many times, of course, it's set the music, which, of course, you confuse montage with song. That's why it makes it difficult sometimes. But yeah, essentially,
Uh-huh.
when you look at it that way, I mean, Mulan's one of the greats. Point being, it's one of the great montages, and definitely my favorite scene in the movie here because one we convey a lot of development of Tarzan. Again, one with the mimic ability, which basically we start with the mimic ability, and ultimately through the sequence, we see him actually learning. So initially, it's like he's taking in what he's seeing, he's just trying to replicate it. Like he sees the projections, he's trying to mimic like the strong man just kind of standing there. But as time goes by through the sequence, he's actually learning. Like he learns to speak by the end of the sequence. He kind of understands what they're saying. He thinks gorilla means chalk. Now he knows what actually what gorilla means. It's 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 kind of Tarzan being seduced by the other world in a sense. It's like basically Tarzan throughout the sequence is being torn between the two worlds. And I love the emotion in the sequence too, with the kind of the Phil Collins of it all, where basically reach a point where you see Tarzan running off, and you see this moment where Kala and Turk are like Turk's consoling Kala, who's like, oh, where's he going? It's like this little sad moment within the song. We're doing all this.
Right, yeah.
It just this complements the visual directing style of the movie. Again, the visual of the side projector is it's great. We see a zoetrope. We have the old timey bicycle but we have the warm and cool colors.
I love the old timey bicycle, by the way. That's such a good sight gag.
I love what we're doing color wise because we have the warmth of the lighting of the projector, which basically represents kind of the man's world, and then of course we have the cool colors of the jungle at night. We're just looking at the stars and being kind of enamored by it. And I love that. That's the universal learning moment you're talking about, Tiki. We're just laying amongst the gorillas, and he's looking at the stars after he's seen like a comet. He's like, oh my god, look at all the possibilities out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like he can't sleep with a big smile on his face because he's thinking of all the cool stuff he learned. It's like, yes,
it's great stuff. Great stuff.
It's oh god, it's just so much. It's such a one. I'm sorry, I can geek about this scene for a long time.
We could. We literally really could do like a frame by frame breakdown of it if we wanted to. Dragon. I'm sure we could.
For another part, another bit too is like we throughout the sequence as well. As much as Tarzan's progressing, we also upon a rewatch, you really notice that Jane learns that he teaches Jane how to swing a vine here, which again, like she's changing along with him. Like she's not wearing the frou yellow outfit in that scene.
The strangers like me.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Again, the cornerstone of that relationship is that they're teaching something about each other. They're learning about each other, and we see that visualized within the sequence. And we have like Clayton also getting really frustrated, where it's like teaching about the gorillas, and like Tarzan's just being playful with him. He's ripping the thing up, and it's like, oh, it's.
I love the animation where Tarzan like just slips into camp and he's walking like Clayton, just mimicking Clayton's walk.
Absolutely, yes. It's great. And speaking of which, so some other we get off the strangers like me topic, but trash in the camp. What do you think about trash in the camp?
Oh my god, I forgot that even existed, and I watched it like an hour ago.
Just bridging off of the music of the movie. Let's talk about like trash in the camp.
Trash in the Camp is easily the worst song in the movie. Here's the thing, Dragon. It's one of the better songs in the Broadway play because of how they produce it, because of how they do it. It's actually like very, very, very lively in the Broadway play. But in the movie, honestly, I really don't think we need it.
Well, well, real quick. First of all, it's fun fact because you brought up the Broadway stuff here. A little fun fact. Mark Manlia, I believe his name is Mark Mancia, I think it is Mark Mancia. He did the score for this movie, and he also did the Lion King Broadway music. It's a little fun fact there. Another jungle movie yet again. But I mean, look, Trash in the Camp 1. This is just kind of a purely fun sequence. You're right. Do we need it? Probably not. Is it fun? Yeah, it's pretty fun.
It's the Rosie O'Donnell variety hour.
Yeah, which is true. But it's just kind of like honestly, I like the visuals of the sequence more than the song itself. It's kind of jazzy and kind of fun.
Let me tell you how they do it in the Broadway show.
Yeah, how do they do it in the Broadway show? Tell me.
So in the Broadway show, during intermission, we see these two like fuddy-duddy British people who we presume are part of Clayton's crew, because Clayton has like a whole crew with him in the Broadway show. That's a change, and they're like setting up the camp, right? And they're like going out of their way to like set it up like very meticulously because like this is how Miss Porter is going to want it, And so they're just like, it's a whole bit, it's a whole like, basically it's a 15-minute comedy routine in the intermission. And we're just thinking like anyone who's like looked at their program sees that the first song in Act 2, Dragon, is Trash in the Camp. And so it's a great build-up because we see the camp actually being built. We see how much it means to the people building it that it remains pristine. And then, of course, as soon as Act 2 starts and the gorillas come out, just chaos ensues, and it's great, and it's super high energy.
Okay, before we can press on, let me do two things here. One, a little fun, basically a little bit of background on Phil Collins. Like, why the heck we have Phil Collins doing this movie? I mean, it's like kind of neglect these. I want to wait till we talk about the music a little bit here. So the Phil Collins songs are kind of again, they may be a deal breaker for some. Tiki and I already kind of went the reasons we kind of like it for the most part there. But the main reason we have Phil Collins music in this movie is that they wanted to avoid Tarzan singing. They did not. The worst nightmare that they had was Tarzan would be singing in the movie.
Easily the worst part of the Broadway show, Dragon. I will say that much.
Oh my god, I didn't think that he sings in the Broadway show.
He sings, and it's very awkward. Maybe I just had a bad actor, but I just thought, just in general, it was awkward.
Yeah, it just sounds wrong. Again, it just sounds like a bad idea. It may not be the actor's fault. It's just the bad idea.
Singing, that's totally fine. Turk singing, that's totally fine. But yeah, even Kerchak, he gets a ballad or two, and that's fine. But yeah, for some reason, Tarzan singing, it's just, like I said, Drake, I want to emphasize, maybe I just had a bad actor, all right? That could very well be the case. But I don't know, man. It was pretty awkward.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Bear in mind, I wasn't there. I wouldn't judge the actor. I would put it on again. I think just in concept, Tarzan shouldn't sing. I think that might be.
Yeah, for sure.
And also, basically, they didn't want Tarzan singing.
I just remember him trying to sing "Strangers Like Me," and he's just like, "I wanna know, can you show me?"
See, that's
just like, oh god, oh no.
Just doesn't play. And also, so basically bridging off that, they wanted to shake up the Disney formula, like how we do the songs, and they just kind of wanted to go by, like.
Sure. And I think it's an admirable break from the formula.
Certainly. And speaking of which, I think we might want to share Donovan's comment in regards to the Phil Collins music a little earlier. Just kind of get it in there.
Phil Collins' music was just the best.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
Shout out for Donovan there while we're talking about the music. Thought it'd be kind of nice. All right, so this brings us to basically the end of Act 2, as it were. Will basically be so Tarzan's kind of found like, hey, I've befriended Jane, the professor. I've really come to like Jane. Unfortunately, they're leaving.
Skipper and Marianne.
Sure.
I'm sorry, I couldn't resist.
Okay, the point being, Tarzan has a dilemma here where Jane is leaving. They need to find gorillas. The only way to get her to stay is to show him the gorillas. After a long last, Tarzan kind of buckles, and he's like, yeah, I'll show him. I'll take him to the gorillas, but I need to distract Kerchak. So things seem to be going well. Until Kerchak comes back, and all heck breaks loose, and there's a betrayal in there of like, oh my god, the minute I started trusting Tarzan and all of this, and I specifically said, like, I don't want these strangers coming near us. I don't trust them. I don't like them. I don't know anything about them.
What's great is that this is never a liar reveal situation because Tarzan never technically lies.
True, and he just went off. No one asked him where he went.
Yeah. And I think that's such a good, refreshing way to subvert that whole, like, Act 2, like, turning on someone. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, the closest thing to a lie is, like, this Tantor pretending to be the professor with that awesome-looking kind of
oh, God.
Trunk that he's got going on there. But yeah, it's basically this brings to Kerchak yet again being kind of our check-in point here. So Tarzan has to kind of fight off Kerchak, which I imagine really hurts Kerchak's feelings, especially after all the problems.
Definitely from the book.
Oh, obviously.
Tarzan has to fight Kerchak like multiple times in the book.
Well, as I mentioned, again, Kerchak definitely has. There's a reason he'd be getting into that fight. But no, you're right. Yeah, it's that's the thing. So we have this dilemma where he's basically kind of wrestling Kerchak, and this kind of leads to I love the reaction on Tarzan. He's like looking at his hands, like, what have I done here? Where he had to stop him to protect Jane because Kerchak was going to tear him to pieces. He was.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And again, that lighting. Again, we get to the magic hour lighting of the scene. So again, the lighting equals danger for Tarzan, and of course, it's like you're going to saved by the skin of their teeth there. And again, this leads to I tasked you with protecting this family, which is basically that's the big kind of like the passing the torch between Kerchak and Tarzan. He's like saying basically drawing the line and saying you have to pick who you're loyal to, them or us, essentially.
Oh.
And again, it's like, they have that the whole like it's basically you get the blessing from the adoptive kind of replacement parent that you have in essence here, that I would never accept you, but now I kind of accept you. At this point, you pull something like this, you have to pick whose side you're going to be loyal to, and it's just. It's just it's kind of a great low point for the story for Tarzan.
It is.
Tarzan is completely in conflict with himself after this because Kerchak is just kind of the big authoritative figure in Tarzan's life that he's always just tried to please in some way, shape, or form, just be accepted by this one guy, the guy who took you in. Because again, he's very loyal to
Like I
Kerchak.
said, the movie doesn't just have Tarzan want Kerchak's approval because Kerchak's the leader. It's like, no, it's like Tarzan genuinely respects Kerchak.
Absolutely, and he just wants to do right by him and do right by his role.
Yeah.
Where, if anything happens to him, I mean, I'm skilled enough that I could protect the family, so I should also kind of be ready to accept that responsibility. It's not like a whole story about that, but it's there. Like we're not just we don't spell it out, which I think is a really great idea. We don't spell out that Tarzan wants to be the protector. Tarzan doesn't speak about wanting these things. Like the only time he does that is kind of the moment with Kala in the mud.
I mean, really, when you think about it, Tarzan he doesn't really have all that much dialogue at all for a main Disney character, and I think that's pretty refreshing, honestly.
Remember, Tarzan, I mean, he speaks as a kid, don't get me wrong, but he doesn't really speak as kind of like the full-fledged Tarzan until Act 2.
Yeah, right.
He doesn't speak during that Sabre fight at all, really. He doesn't. He only speaks when he meets Jane.
Yeah, the closest he comes to speaking in the Sabre fight is the yell.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, you're right. Yeah, and then we get a big scene here, and think about how great this is plotting wise, Tiki. So Tarzan returns with Kala to basically Kala. This
is my favorite scene in the movie, bar none.
This is basically the big "you're from Krypton" scene. If we're going to go by Superman comparison here, this is where Tarzan learns about his true parentage. This is where he learns.
There's one moment in the movie in this scene. There's one moment in the scene that just kills me, and we'll build to it. It kills me every time.
Oh, it's good. There's a lot of great bits. I think I know what you're talking about, though. So Tarzan returns to Kala, very interestingly, to the start of the film where these two characters found each other, which I think
it's such a great like bookend. You know what? Yes. Like, narratively speaking, it's such a great way to tie everything together.
Tarzan is finally given the complete information. Like he knows everything he needs to know about his past. Tarzan is now a complete character. Now he has all the information he's armed with to make a choice. Am I man or am I gorilla? I have to make that choice. Where am I going to go? Because the boat's leaving tomorrow. I got to make a choice here, and it leads to maybe you should take the lead from this point forward. Like, what moment really strikes you, man?
I assume that we're thinking about the same moment, which is the moment where Tarzan steps out from the treehouse in his father's clothes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God, Dragon. And you know what I love about that moment, Dragon? It's just like their reactions to each other. Again, the eyes, man. The animation on the fucking eyes just says it all. And we just get a few words from Tarzan, Dragon, and that's all we need. And the only thing that Tarzan says in this moment, the only line of dialogue we have in this moment is, no matter where I go, you'll always be my mother. And that's all we need. That's fucking all we need. Everything else is conveyed in the emotions, in the symbolism. It's beautiful. It's such a beautiful moment, Dragon. That moment has always just really, really stuck with me.
It closes the loop to that story so perfectly, where again it pays off the opening to the departure. This is the departure, but the ultimate lesson that I learned: you took me in when I had no one. And it's kind of like, without saying all of that, it's just saying in that one line so many
that
things.
One line is just honestly, it didn't even that one line didn't really hit me until adulthood. Just how powerful that line is.
Oh, yeah, I just love that. And the tears that she's shedding is that is like she always dreaded taking him back here because one would bring up some pain, obviously, but two would be like, when I do this, he's going to be gone because he's going to find it. I never thought there would be anyone else to ever come in the jungle that he would actually have a way of leaving. I never thought this would be like that was in the past, but now it's actually relevant that if I do this, I've lost him forever. But again, so that reassurance that she gets, it's kind of like the ultimate Mother's Day moment too, if you really think about it.
This movie could be a Mother's Day movie. Yes, it could.
Well, I mean, again, hey, Glen Keane, man, she and about another fun fact too. Kevin Lima, one of the other movies he did was 101 Dalmatians 2, where Glen Keane played.
You mean 102 Dalmatians, Dragon?
Yes, that one. Yeah, 102 Dalmatians, that one. By the way, I want to switch the banner back too.
Oh, do I not have the banner?
Well, no, I mean it's.
Oh, sorry. Oh shit. Donovan, yes, we know that you like Phil Collins music, but you don't have to brag about it. And Sagar, what are you doing here? We'll get you eventually, Sagar.
I don't even know how that one works. Okay, no, and also
Tiger's just really anxious for the next episode of the Grab Bag Dragon. What can I tell you?
We'll get you this, Saga. Saga, wait for you.
All right.
Okay, anyway, so moving. Okay, so point being, yeah, it's a great departure in there. And point, Glenn Close, she as well, give her due as well. So Glenn Close, just wonderful choice to play Kyle there, and she brought so much to it. And again, you got to remember too, she's also
she totally brings it for sure.
When you do a role like this, she's gonna be committing to doing gorilla noises and everything. She's just a woman who really cared about this role. You'd have to.
Also,
imagine.
I will say when I saw Tarzan on stage, the woman playing Kala was easily the best performance in the ensemble.
I would expect nothing less. And Kala is she's the driving force. Without Kala, you have to believe that gorilla is going to take in that baby as her own.
Right,
right. You have to believe in that. All right.
Dragon, there was one moment where, it's like right after she loses her, the original baby, the gorilla baby at the very beginning of the play, where she just lets out this like earth-shattering scream, like right to the audience. Oh, it's haunting.
Well, just to get it in there real quick, one of the awesome Kala moments. I mean, there are a lot of them there when she's saving baby Tarzan. One of the great moments, though, is one of the great moments is when Kerchak's like doing like an alpha male sort of things about like he's really like grunting, he's really kind of yelling at her, and she shields the baby and looks him straight in the eye like a mama bear protecting the cub. It's like, oh god, it's so cool.
Right.
Awesome. Okay, so let's talk about Two Worlds, One Finale.
Two Worlds, One Finale.
He put it better than I did, but yes.
All right. Yes. So where do you want to start?
Well, we've danced around Clayton, so of course Clayton has a big role in Act 3. So let's talk about Clayton. So Clayton is played by the wonderful Brian Blessed. Of course, for those who may not, any Flash Gordon fans out there, he was the Hawkman, the Birdman, basically the Prince of the Hawkmen guys, and also he was Boss Nass in Phantom Menace.
Oh, really? Oh, my God.
Yeah, and he's in the Pirates.
I had no idea that Clayton was Boss Nass.
He was the Pirate King in the Pirates, in the Aardman Pirates movie.
Oh, okay. That makes a little more sense.
Brian Blessed is a great actor, too. He's really boisterous, too. He's a boisterous guy. But anyway, so Clayton's. I really like Clayton, personally. I think he's cool.
I don't think Clayton is on the upper tier of Disney villains, but I do think he's a step above like the recent twist Disney villains that we've been getting. So I wouldn't put him in the same league as like, a Hades, for example, or a Frollo. But I definitely put him a step above, like let's say an assistant Mayor Bellwether or a King Candy or a Hans. So I think he's kind of like a middle ground. I don't necessarily think he's that intimidating, Dragon. That's the one knock I'll give against him.
Well, first off, I would argue, bear in mind, I could be absolutely wrong here. I want to say he might have been the first twist villain.
He could be.
It's kind of funny that, given the direction of the Disney films and just kind of Chris Buck having co-directed this movie, and of course the one that kind of restarted the fire on the twist films. I know King Candy was there before, but you kind of have Hans was kind of the big famous twist villain.
Mm-hmm. Right. I think King Candy was like the first one, though.
I mean, you're right.
The one of the modern era.
I mean, you're right about that. I'm just saying. I think the poster boy for the infamy of the twist film was probably Hans. But
honestly, I think the poster boy for the infamy of the twist villain era is Assistant Mayor Bellwether. I know, seriously, she's the worst one, man. She's the worst offender.
You might be right, but it doesn't matter. Point being, Clayton. I think Clayton is absolutely an underrated villain, though. I don't think I don't know. He's not in the upper echelon, but I think he's solid, though. I think that
he doesn't have a song, Dragon. Could you imagine Phil Collins trying to interpret a Clayton villain song?
Did he have one in the Broadway play? If everyone's singing, does Clayton have a song?
I'm pretty sure he did. I don't quite remember what it was off the top of my head. I know Turk had like a yeah, you and me are buddies song. I know that much. I'm sure Clayton, he must have had a song.
I think one of the great things about Clayton, I love with his introduction to it. It's a little detail. If you notice, they did this on purpose. Clayton is garbed in the colors of Sabre. And when he enters, he's in shadow, very much like how Sabre entered that earlier scene. Also, it looks like kind of a leopardy pattern.
That's why I kind of thought that when Sabre re-enters, I thought it was going to be Clayton. Yeah.
It's like the ascot and everything looks like the tongue of Sabre. It's like it's a really cool little parallel there. Okay, we've entered the villain for Act Two, but slightly. Like, hey, look, can you? I think with Clayton, we walk a really smart line where you can kind of sense he's the bad guy, but it's not in your face, so it's not so much a twist, but it's kind of a twist.
Sure, sure.
I mean, it's a twist in the movie. I think it's like a twist that checks the right boxes. It's like, okay, it's a twist that it's not like it's not gonna be a big stand. Like you needed to see it coming, or it's like because it's constantly twist or no win situation these days. Where it's
I'm sorry. One of the worst twists is the Big Hero 6 twist.
that's what I was wondering why you were going to Bell with, because I know you usually speak of that one. That's what I was wondering.
That was his mistake.
But you see what I'm saying? Like nowadays, twists are like something that we're on our toes now with twists. Basically, all the fun have been taken out of twist villains, where you have a sense of Clayton was like at the
All
very
the fun
least.
have been taken out of villains. Period.
Well, at the very least, I like that Clayton is kind of in the infancy, whether it be the beginning or the infancy of the twist villain for Disney, where you have something there where, again, Clayton is just kind of set up as this, he's kind of this burly character with brandishing a gun everywhere, but, you don't see him necessarily as a bad guy right off the bat. You kind of sense, like, this guy's kind of dangerous, but you don't say, like, yeah, he's a mustache, despite the fact the man does have a mustache. He's not mustache twirly quite yet.
Right.
Of course, as I mentioned, in the book, he was Tarzan's brother in kind of a convoluted sort of like inheritance plot line, which I still don't quite get.
Yeah.
Point being, I think it was a wise change, and I do think it's quite clever that we worked in Clayton into the bad guy. If you really know your Tarzan books, it's like, oh, hey, we did that with it. Okay, we kind of kept the Clayton name with it all there. It's kind of but yeah, I like that he built up a little trust with Tarzan. Doing this twist route, we build up a little trust with Tarzan. Where, of course, of all the characters, Tarzan's going to be instantly trusting of people, and that's kind of the great thing about the character. He'll trust, and then he'll kind of get into the big distrust of it all. Like, someone's going to betray him, then he'll learn as he goes on. And this kind of leads to the big moment on the boat, where it's kind of a cool moment here. Where again, I love the second that
I love Tarzan like slamming himself against the side of the boat to try and escape.
I mean, yes, Tegan, what's so great about that is the fact that the second Tarzan tries to leave his home, like you take Tarzan out of Africa, and he goes like the second he's on something that is not in that land. So he goes on a boat, a metal boat. He's a caged animal now. And we just see Tarzan in a position where he just has no power at all. He's a man and he's an animal in a cage, like the worst position Tarzan could ever be in. And again, it takes something that's always been a little iffy in the books. Look, I know they've done stuff with this in like some movies, and like they did that Tarzan movie a couple of years back, and basically the idea of Tarzan, the way the books go as well, is Tarzan does go to London, and he kind of becomes civilized and everything. It's an interesting idea, but every way you slice, like it feels.
The thing about that is that it happens through like maybe like 4 or 5 books. Like in the second book, he does go to London, but he's not exactly civilized. There's like the whole thing of like the wild man in the civil setting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's kind of the premise of the second book. Eventually he does become civilized, but it doesn't happen right away.
Well, you know what I mean. It's you're like taking Tarzan out of that iconic setting, and it's like when you like take Hannibal. It's like the whole Hannibal.
But I'm saying I'm a fan of what they do with him in the second book, because I think the idea of the wild man in the urban jungle is an interesting idea, and it is a natural place they could go with him.
Yeah, like don't get me wrong. I mean, I hear they were contemplating doing that with the third act of this movie as well, based on the books. I was thinking, it's kind of interesting. But again, I think they stuck to their guns smartly on this.
I'm glad they didn't do that. I do think they kind of maybe blew an opportunity for a sequel, because I know that this movie technically had a couple sequels, but one of them was a pilot for the show, and the other one was the one with the weird George Carlin gorilla that was like the mid-quill.
Yeah, that's a dumb idea. Okay, that one was nothing against George Carlin. That was a dumb idea.
So you see what I'm saying, though? I think a legitimate, like, good premise for a Tarzan sequel would have been the wild man in the urban jungle.
Let me put to you this way, Tigo. Well, again, I don't want to distract too much. We're almost done too, by the way, because we don't have a lot left here. But the animated series, what they did so brilliantly to me is that they brought new stories to them, where the idea is like a dock was built. And you had Monsieur Dumont, basically the guy who ran a trading post built on the edge of the jungle, where basically there would be a tourist attraction with Africa. And that's how new characters would be kind of led to Tarzan.
That's interesting, Greg, because you know what? That's actually pretty in line with the book. At least like the first like 4 or 5 books kind of deal with Tarzan leaving Africa and then coming back to save a colonized Africa, you know, kind of like giving Africa back to nature. You know, that's ultimately Tarzan's arc, is like, you know, leaving nature, then coming back and saving nature after it's been taken over by man. Like
That's what I'm saying.
That's what I view Tarzan's like main book arc as. There's other crazy books after that. Like after that arc wraps up, then basically the Tarzan books really go into a pulp fiction route. Like there's crazy books like Tarzan and the Ant-Men and Tarzan and the Crazy Quicksand People and stuff like that. You know what I mean? But really the core fundamentals of Tarzan come from him reclaiming nature from man.
Sure. Well, what I'm saying is, like, you know, they in that series they do bring characters from the books into the show, and they do like kind of a different spin on them, or like kind of they adapt them in kind of a different way. That's what I'm saying. Like we're just bringing these characters and these stories to Tarzan, and it's just kind of like, I don't want to get into the whole the nitty gritty, but you see what I'm saying. I still think it was a good choice that they made, kind of defining Tarzan's character, who sometimes like he went to a prison once, which I forget if that's in one of the books or not. Points like Tarzan's kind of taken to a prison.
I'm sure it is.
That's the closest we ever get to taking him out of the setting, but again, it's for a point of a story, you know, and that's sort of thing. He never went to England in the series, but I like that's the line that we drew with him for this interpretation of Tarzan. It just felt in his DNA, and that's kind of what we're saying with kind of the jungle as a character within itself within the film, and just kind of as a rule of thumb with the character. Anyway, so the point being, so back to Clayton of it all again. I like that twist of like the Tarzan garbed as a man, wearing the suit and everything, like as he's civilized, you know, getting in that direction, becoming fully civilized, presumably if he ever went to England and everything. You know, Clayton just, you know, his Clayton says, "I'm sorry, have we met?" And just like, oh God. Just Clayton is rubbing dirt in the wound and just, you know, revealing that he had the agenda the whole time. Like, yeah, I was going to, you know, basically poach the girls, which kind of brings to the climax of it all here, where after a really hilarious rescue by Tantor and Turk.
Oh my God.
Fun. Which just let's just shout him out too. Wayne Knight did a terrific job as Tantor as well.
He did. I feel like Tantor is a pretty underrated side character in the Disney canon.
And Jim Cummings does him in the show, and he's great too. He is. They made those characters their own, but they made it in a way that was in the spirit of the movie, but just kind of made it even better. One could argue.
Nice.
They want those characters. Anywho, okay, point being, so we're poaching the gorillas, which can, of course, we have the big color thing with the flares. We use the flares to kind of, we have this great dichotomy here. We have the red lighting of the flares, where all the dangerous bad stuff's happening, where all the gorillas are being poached and thrown in cages, and everything. Kala's being thrown in a cage. Kerchak's trying to fight him off. He is then caged and netted and almost killed by, initially, you know, like basically because he terrified him so much, Clayton has a bone, as a bone to pick with old Kerchak.
Oh God.
And opposed to this is Tarzan rushing back to the gorilla camp with the cool blues of the jungle. It just looks great. Just the blues, the red, the blue, the red.
Mm-hmm.
We have like a bit where Jane saves Kala with the help of the baboons from earlier, which is really nice. And ultimately, let's start with kind of the Clayton of it all before we hit the other kind of side. We have 2 deaths, very poignant deaths at the end of this movie. So let's start with the death of Clayton.
Yeah, the death of Clayton, arguably the most brutal Disney villain death of all time, Dragon. I think that's pretty fair to say.
I think it's absolutely fair to say.
I don't think that Clayton is the most evil Disney villain of all time. I think that honor has to go to Frollo, but this is the most brutal death.
You know, like, say what you will about Clayton. What's really great about this last sequence, this last kind of climax, the way this unfolds with the fight between him and Clayton. You know, within the vines and everything, you know, like Clayton, again, becomes increasingly more savage as he kind of would deem Tarzan at the start of this thing. He becomes what he would kind of, like, begrudge Tarzan for at the start of things here. He's getting more vicious as he gets more desperate, especially after he loses his gun. We have that great gun moment, too, where Tarzan's like, he points the gun at him, like, "Oh, you're not going to do it." Like, yeah, that's it. Pull the trigger like a man.
Right.
And Tarzan just spooks him with like making the gunshot noise, using his mimic ability. There, just makes like a very absolutely 100% authentic gunshot sound with this. The earlier Clayton noise, essentially, to Clayton. And just, "I'm not a man like you." He smashes the gun, as he does a lot in the show, by the way. You know, it's one of my favorite things when Batman smashes guns low and Tarzan smashes guns too. It's great. So, he basically, in rejecting the environment, that at the end of the day, Clayton's undoing is that he rejected and didn't respect the environment that he inhabited, where Tarzan did, where he basically becoming one with the gorillas, and of course with the environment, he basically kind of becoming one with Africa as a whole. He knows his way around the vines and everything. And during this fight, Clayton's like swinging at him with a sword, like a machete or something. And basically, as he keeps going there, Tarzan uses the jungle to his advantage, like dropping all these vines around him. And then Clayton he won't give up. He comes in savage again, identical to the Sabre sequence earlier on, which just keeps coming at him. And as the lightning again is our sense of danger, like flash, 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 and he's just like cutting through everything. And Tarzan's warm, don't, and of course, and he slashes the wrong vines, and down the two of them go. Tarzan lands on his feet. Clayton, well, not so
lucky.
Falls, and then that lightning's going on here, folks. As the sword lands, again, you know what's happening, but you know what? We like to drive it home. But Tarzan, we go big. We're not holding anything back here, folks. We see the dangling body in silhouette as Tarzan's looking up at him.
And don't we see the machete land too?
No, the machete lands first as Tarzan lands, and then basically looks up, and we have the lightning flash, and we see the body going back and forth as he's just going.
Man.
After the vine's going to tell, he's dead 3 ways of the Sunday, my friend. He's dead.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty damn brutal.
That's great. And then, of course, we have the reason that Clayton had to die is that Clayton killed Kerchak.
Yes. And so this is, man, I remember this always fucking me up as a little kid. I do. I mean, talk about a great redemption arc. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is a beautiful...
Not just a redemption arc for Kerchak, but a redemption arc for Tarzan in Kerchak's eyes, It kind of works both ways.
Absolutely. This is a beautiful, sad moment. It truly is. In his last moments, Kerchak is accepting Tarzan as his son, something he thought he would never ever do, especially after the tumultuous, like they were fighting alongside each other before Kerchak was shot, and it was a really they were beginning to bond. Just as they were beginning to bond, it's kind of like the redemption has kind of begun. Then of course Kerchak is taken from him, and such a powerful thing. It does kind of coats the moments of the series. By the way, I forgive me if I keep just dragging the series in there again. Big nostalgic time. I'm going to try to focus on this moment here. Point being, it's the passing. He's passing the burden of leadership onto Tarzan, but also the vow of essentially the intrinsic vow that Kerchak's echoed throughout the movie. Protect our family. It's kind of gone from protect the family to protect our family in a sense. And it's like, hey, protect our family. Tarzan. I was wrong to think you were not a member of the family. You are, and you will lead them. They're going to look for leadership, and that's going to be you. And like his last fleeting moments. One of the most realistic Disney deaths. Like Mufasa, he was dead upon the fall. Here we live with it.
Yes, absolutely.
He dies in his father's arms. That's... Oh God, it's a big one. And then of course he does kind of he kind of consolidates the power with kind of the alpha male via the Weissmuller Tarzan yell. It's a big passing of the torch moment. It's sad but beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
That brings us to the ending of the two worlds of it all.
The ending is so damn satisfying, man.
And it is. I love Jane stays. Thanks again. Wonderful.
My favorite detail about it, and you don't have to say it because I know it leads into the series, is that Professor Porter also stays.
That he does.
Dragon, I don't know, for some reason, as a kid, that always just delighted me to no end. I'm like, all right, the professor's coming too.
Because it makes sense. We'd always been wondering about it. What? Why can't he just stay?
Right, for sure. And you know what, Dragon? Just props to Professor Porter for maybe being the most supportive Disney dad ever.
Yes, because remember, he gives her those words of encouragement that she needed to hear to kind of get, because she wanted to stay, but she kind of, in her old way of viewing things with her upbringing, I don't know if I can. And in that moment, thanks to the professor, she makes it mirrors the Colosseum to an extent, not in quite the same way, but it's kind of like more of a father-daughter sort of thing. It's like, hey, I want you to be happy, in a sense where she knows who she is, but now she's been exposed to this other world. It's like, hey, just do whatever makes you happy. Don't by all means go if that makes you happy, and she does.
Right.
It's great. And of course, we have this gay, and this to me feels like a little kind of precursor of what Chris Buck will be doing, years later with Frozen. Here we have the kiss gag. I think the kiss gag's brilliant, where Jane kind of kind of old 30s Hollywood style here. She kind of washes up as she just dives off the boat, and she's like, swims back to Tarzan, and she plants one right on him. And she kind of like catches herself because she's the proper English woman of the 19th century. It's like, then she kind of reels herself back. It's like, yeah, that's some Chris Buck. Like, yeah, we're not quite there yet. At least we got to call ourselves on that if we're going to do that.
Yeah.
Nobody that meta Disney humor. It's like, the whole, like, we have to have the kiss in the movie, or we have to, like the first love at first sight. In this case, we subverted that in a
You have a
great
talking
way.
sidekick, and you wear a dress, so therefore you are a princess.
Oh god! So then we have the two worlds payoff. Where literally throughout the course of the movie, the two worlds have come together. One finally with this. Again, this is kind of a montage, but it's kind of the ending too. So it's kind of hard to call it. You know what I mean? It's like the last.
It's kind of a montage. It's like
again, fine.
Montage.
All right, fine. Montage per act. Happy?
Yes, I am, Dragon.
There you
Thank
go.
you.
The montage, we have per act. We have the money shot there as we go through everything. We check in with the professor, and then the last moment is Tarzan and Jane together as kind of Tarzan's very much, especially in cinema too. Cinema is really much marketed on Tarzan and Jane many a time, and kind of properly end on that.
All right, so there we go, Dragon. I gotta say, final thoughts. Just outside of this film just being fantastic, Dragon, I gotta say I really enjoyed revisiting it and discussing it. I feel like this was a very engaging conversation from both our ends. And so, yeah, just in terms of final thoughts, this is definitely one of. I mean, Dragon, I'm honestly sick of the big four. All right, I gotta tell you, like the big four are always going to be the big four. When I say the big four, I mean Little Mermaid, Beauty and King, and Aladdin. Like they're always going to be like, they're the classics, they're the icons, they're the Mount Rushmore of this era. But I really think movies like Tarzan kind of, they kind of illustrate the more creative and risky side of the Disney Renaissance. You know what I mean? The ability to just kind of like shake the dice on a concept and really just see if it works. And Tarzan, like you said, it's like I think the only thing that people have reservations about with this movie at all is the Phil Collins music. And even the people that have reservations about the Phil Collins music, like my dad, can still really appreciate it just from a character point of view and just from, really getting everything down about the book and the themes and just presenting it in a really, really satisfying way. So, yeah, Dragon, especially revisiting this and with our discussion being so vibrant and, just very, very on point, I'm really happy with Tarzan's place, and I'm really glad we got to do this for the 20th anniversary. This was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. So, final thoughts for me. This movie there's something special about this movie. Looking back, this in many senses of the word, it kind of jumpstarts a lot of the kind of the DNA of success in some of the later works. In the animation industry. I mean, for example, let me put it this way. Again, this movie, just some of the people involved here. We get, Frozen years later. We get How to Train Your Dragon. We get a little fun fact. This was the competition for Iron Giant. So Brad Bird knew that this was what Disney had coming out while he was working on Iron Giant. This kind of led to the downfall of Iron Giant, unfortunately, where Iron Giant was released before Tarzan, so it wouldn't have to compete with it. Not the entire reason. It was basically Brad Bird's kind of feeling as though it's like, this movie's so good, we can release it now. We don't have to wait a year. We don't have to wait till we don't have to wait till 2000. Let's do it now, man. I believe it came out. Anyway, point being, this movie kind of inspired a lot of creativity and kind of the DNA of a lot of success and a lot of really good ideas and a lot of really the right people coming together is in this movie. As you kind of spoke to, again, the latter half of the Renaissance or kind of that period while we have 2D at Disney. You have like a lot of great success. You have like your Hunchback of Notre Dame, you have your Tarzan, you have your Lilo and Stitch. Like, those are three excellent ones right off the bat.
Emperor's New Groove as well.
Yes, thank you. Yes, there's a Mount Rushmore for you right there.
right, for sure.
And
hell, I'd even throw Fantasia 2000 in there. Fantasia 2000 is super underrated.
That's fair. That's fair. Personally, I would go more towards. I'm sure there'd be a lot of conjecture with this by some people. Like, your treasure planets and your Atlantises.
Treasure
But
Planet and Atlantis, I feel like, is kind of like this weird, like, I view Treasure Planet and Atlantis as Disney's anime phase.
yeah, and it was a good phase though. It was a neat
It
phase.
was. It was a short-lived phase, but it was a neat phase. It was Disney with his Disney spiky mohawk phase.
Yeah. Anyway, so look, this at the end of the day, this movie deserves much more. Here's the thing: I'm sure this movie gets attention. Again, it's fondly remembered, but I think more people need to check out this movie if they haven't, right? Because I think people are blind when they think Disney. I don't think they're thinking of Tarzan. No offense, they're thinking again of the big four Tiki we're referring to. They're thinking of like the various or the modern stuff that's coming out, which again those are good as well. But still, you know what? We got to give attention to some of these. You have attention to movies like this. It's Disney. At the end of the day, this movie is sticking with Disney's core principles of storytelling. We're adapting a classic in the works of Edgar Rice Burroughs. We're adapting that into a very thoughtful, very well constructed film that, in my opinion, it somewhat surpasses the source material. I mean, because we
Oh,
update.
I think it does surpass the source material. Actually,
That's the thing.
I don't think my dad would agree as a diehard Edgar Rice Burroughs fan, but for me, as like an objective, 21st century millennial looking at it, I do think this is probably the superior product.
Because I think we made smarter story choices. And look, if we got another stab at doing Tarzan, but still remaining true to that work, I think this is absolutely how you tell that story. Again, if you're going to, not just, in many senses of the word. We're taking that story and we're telling it in a way that basically can be applied to all ages. That can basically appeal to everybody. And again, still going strong 20 years later, and as a really swell animated show to boot. So can't really say a lot for that. It's 20 years strong, and I'm so happy this movie's around. It's one of the ones I would revisit a few times. I'll tell you, it's a good one.
All right. So, folks, thank you so much for joining us. This is honestly one of my favorite podcasts we've recorded in a while, just because of how much we got out of this from both our ends. So, thank you guys so much. It's been a good night. Thanks for Donovan for joining us before the chat. Sorry we were a little late coming on, Donovan. That's totally my fault. And we will see you all later. Gorilla!
Strangers like me. Dun, dun, dun.